All right, everything is live. We've got 1 minute. Member Butt just joined us too.
Great. No, I don't see Tom. Oh, there he is. Aha. Good morning, Tom.
Morning.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I am Newell Einerich, Chair of the Administration and Projects Committee, APC, of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. It's May 6th at 8:30 a.m. and I'll call this meeting to order. And we'll now play a video to help start the introduction of this meeting.
Bear with me, I'm pulling it up.
This is when we need the interlude music.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the
Can you
CCTA
hear it?
website. The chair will call upon members,
Okay.
staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should remute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. A 30-second warning will be provided. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the COVID-19 Special Notice for Public Comment Guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Great. Thank you, Christina. And now we can please take the roll. Christina, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Chair Arnrich,
Here.
Vice Chair Geringer,
Here.
Member Butt,
Here.
Member Nowak.
Yes, but I think I'm vice chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Vice
That's
Chair.
okay.
I had a moment too where I was going,
Last
what?
year.
Yeah, I know. I just thought I'd clarify that for the record.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, and Member Thorpe?
Here.
Thank you. We have all of our members present.
Great. Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda is for public comment. And this public comment is for anyone who would like to speak to the APC committee on anything that's not on the agenda. You have up to 3 minutes to do so. And if you would like to, you may raise your hand. And also, Christina, was there any written correspondence?
No, I didn't receive any.
And I do not see anybody raising their hand. Okay, thank you. And there will be opportunity for additional public comment on specific items as we go through our agenda. And the next item on the agenda is our consent calendar. And the consent calendar are items that are considered routine and can be approved in one motion. However, is there anybody in the audience listening in or a commissioner that would like to remove any items for comment? And Christina, do we have anybody asking to remove? I do not see any.
No hands.
Okay. And is there a motion to accept our consent calendar?
So moved?
Second, Geringer.
It's been moved and seconded. Moved by Noack, seconded by Geringer. Christina, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Member Butt,
Yes.
Member Geringer,
Yes.
Member Thorpe,
Aye.
Vice Chair Noack,
Yes.
and Chair Arnrich.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. And this will take us to item number 4 under regular agenda items. And the first item is number 4A, and this is a legislative update. And we will have a presentation, and we'll start with Lindsay, who's going to lead us off. Lindsay, good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. With us this morning, we have both our federal advocates, Gus Maples and Jason Ty, and our state advocate, Mark Watts. And there is a lot happening at both the state and the federal level. So I think we'll start it off with Gus and Jason, and they can give you an update on what's happening in Washington, D.C. And then Mark will walk us through what's happening in Sacramento and specifically highlight a few bills that were included in your packet. So Gus, Jason, feel free to get us started.
Great. Welcome, Gus. Jason?
Thank you very much, Chair, Vice Chair, and thank you, Lindsay, for the quick introduction. Really appreciate everyone's time today. I think earlier this year, we had a DC virtual visit, given the times that we are in, and the tremendous work that was done by Chair and Vice Chair in the meetings. I think we had meetings with every single member within our delegation, along with the Senate staff. And then, with Tim kind of doing this, his first go around as the lead CEO, executive director, with Lindsay, I think he really hit this out of the park. All of the meetings that we had really reaped some significant results that I think Tim has reported and Lindsay has reported, and that Gus will get into in terms of what the earmarks process looks like. And in the fact that all of the members in the delegation, by far and large, really took all of our CCTA's funding requests and gave it very serious consideration to submit them to the House Appropriations Committee and the House T&I Committee. So I would want to preface this before Gus does a deeper dive, is that unlike 10 years ago, before the earmark ban was first passed, it was the fact that they wanted to instill a lot of different reforms. So unlike the halcyon go-go days in the past, when you had hundreds of millions of dollars to bridges to nowhere and things of that nature, I think they wanted to instill a lot more discipline into this process. So as part of that, each member for the House Appropriation Committee earmarks is capped at no more than 10 projects per member. Unlike years in the past where they can submit as many as they wanted and they can get a lot more funded. This time, no more than 10 per member for their entire district. And that includes not just transportation, but labor projects, health projects, health clinics, COPS grants, everything along the sun. So that was very, very constrained. And each of those 10 projects, not all of them will be approved. So that's kind of one set of parameters. A lot more transparency, all good things, but definitely the amount of funding is much smaller than in the past. On the surface transportation reauthorization bill, when they last had earmarks back in 2005, which some of us old folks like myself can remember, when you had 6,000 some earmarks totaling billions and billions of dollars, this is a whole lot different. Each House member is capped not by how many projects they can submit. They can prioritize up to 5, but they are capped in terms of the entire pot is no more than $15 to $20 million for their entire district. And so these particular constraints does create a much different scenario in that there's just not as much money to go around and there are fewer project funding opportunities. So given that, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, the fact that so many members in our delegation submitted so many different things on CCTA's behalf is really testament to the leadership of the board, the meetings that you had earlier this year. And frankly, Tim and Lindsay really hitting the ball out of the park and really prepping things and creating a strategy on how to really promote these projects. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gus to do a deeper dive in the process, where things stand and what the status might be. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. To kind of build upon what Jason had said about what our delegation has done in the House so far, I've tallied up that I believe we have support for a little over $21 million for several different projects spanning the whole county. These are related to traffic signal upgrades, to transit access improvements. There is a request for zero emission bus rolling stock acquisition, some other traffic and congestion improvement measures. This runs the gamut through the T&I reauthorization process and a project in the appropriations process. So we're very thankful for all the work that the staff and you of the board have done in compiling the information to help us get these in. It's a very fast process, and then we had to go back with some follow-up information and questions to assure that the members were confident in the justification for these projects, getting letters of support. That was very helpful. So we feel very good about where we're at right now. As things move along, I believe the House Transportation Committee should be marking up its reauthorization bill for the FAST Act reauthorization, possibly later this month. As with all things in Congress, there's a chance that, deadlines slip a week or so. But Speaker Pelosi has set a goal to pass that bill off the House floor by the 4th of July recess. So that's still the track we're on, and we will be monitoring this process as the committee begins vetting these projects and stay engaged there to see what we can do about getting through the next step. One other thing that I did want to point out here in Washington, as the agencies, the federal agencies, are getting more staffed up and more appointments are being made, US DOT has begun picking up a little more activity on its regulations and things. Just last Friday, they had announced a notice of proposed rulemaking seeking public comments on the CAFE standards that the previous Trump administration had changed, particularly affecting California and the states that adhere to the stricter standards on emissions. So they're seeking comments as well as the Environmental Protection Agency in the overlap on that issue. So just wanted to make sure y'all are aware, as the agencies are being staffed up and more administrators being put into place, action is moving along on that track as well.
Great, Gus. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, Jason, to wrap this up on the federal side?
Yeah, one additional data point we would add is that just last Friday, both Tim and Lindsay and our team connected with Chairman House Transportation Committee Chairman Peter DeFazio's team to highlight some of the projects that the members in our delegation have requested. So we are pushing on all possible fronts to ensure that CCTA's project requests are front and center for all the decision makers that are dealing with these things. And kind of one final thought is that I think not only because of obviously Tim's and Lindsay's fantastic work, is also because of the board's work in branding CCTA as one of the preeminent innovative agencies, not only in California, but in the country. I think has really given us this ability to leverage that reputation and the confidence from these decision makers that what you say you're going to do, and you're going to move the envelope in a good way for this country. So I think all of that figures in. So thank you to the board for doing that.
That's great. Thank you, Gus and Jason. Any questions from our board members for Jason or Gus on federal? Okay, seeing none. Guys, thank you for the work you're doing. It's an exciting time, and we have a short window to be successful. So thanks for all your work on this, and Lindsay as well. Okay, Mark Watts, how are you today, and what are our friends doing in Sacramento?
I'm
Mark, you're cutting out.
Doing fine. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee that, yeah, shoot. I'm gonna stop my video and just go with voice.
There you go.
Hopefully that works. Am I still cutting out?
Nope, you're okay right now.
Okay. So I've got three things essentially to talk to you about. I'm going to give you an update on the Secretary's climate action plan. I was going to tell you what's going on in the legislature and the budget, as well as discuss a couple of bills that Lindsay had mentioned we would like you to consider. So first, the Secretary's office has been working for a year and a half on developing a climate action plan for transportation infrastructure pursuant to executive orders by the governor. The plan has come together. It's got a number of strategies that they're proposing, and the long-range goal is to align discretionary transportation dollars that the administration can control in terms of programming with moving forward on climate change. And it's been somewhat controversial. The public comment period closed May 4th, and we're waiting to see what the next draft will look like. Moving on to the legislature, this is the period of time where the first House policy committees wrap up their efforts for this part of the year. The deadlines have been met and bills have been left behind, and the ones that have moved on are either in appropriations or heading to the floor. The appropriations hearings will take place over the next week or two, and June is the date that the bills will have to move to the other house or become two-year bills. On terms of the budget, I think this may be of interest. The May revise is expected on May 10th. We've been hearing rumors, everybody's been hearing rumors that the combined effect of a higher than projected revenues plus a steady flow of federal aid to the states is resulting in a one-time surplus of $25 to $40 billion. When I spoke with legislative budget staff last week about how they plan to spend some of this money, they said it actually may be more than 40 billion, and it may have to be dealt with in three major budget adoptions. The main one in June and July, probably two in August. So hang on, it's going to be a long and fun ride as we go through the budget over the next couple of weeks. Before you today in your packet was a matrix on bills that had been prepared well before the package went out. So some of this information is out of date. There are several bills Lindsay would like me to highlight, and I will mention the page number as I also indicate the bill. And I've got updates on where they stand at this point in time. One of the bills of interest is part of a suite of Brown Act measures that are intended to look at and extend the options for virtual meetings of local agencies. The key bill there is AB 339, and that's listed on page A16 in your packet. And that measure was amended this week. It had applied to all local agencies. Now it applies to cities and counties with a population greater than 250,000. So in this case, because it's fluid, the staff is recommending that we would adopt a watch position on this measure so that we can be trailing it and ready to move if it moves into a position where we would have concerns or support, and we can come back to you with a recommendation at that point in time. AB 455 by Mr. Bonta deals with the transit lanes on the Bay Bridge. That bill is in Appropriations Committee right now. AC Transit has reached out, and they're looking for support for the measure. This measure is described on page A16 in your packet. As I indicated, it's in appropriations, and it looks like as a result of Mr. Bonta assuming the Attorney General's position, the work that needs to be done will be done by Ms. Wicks, Assemblymember Wicks, at this point in time, and keeping the measure moving. Another bill that deals with something that's near and dear to Lindsay, Tim, and I, and that's bus on shoulder legislation. AB 476 on page J17 was amended to provide a platform for discussion about bus on shoulder or freeway or bus access on transit lanes. It's a 2-year bill. Mr. Mullen is the author, and we would like to have this as a watch because it's not in its best shape at this point in time. As I indicated, it's a platform for discussion. And we'll be working with that office to get some better language that we've already promulgated into the measure as we move forward. I've got 4 more bills. I'll go as quickly as I can. AB 629 by Mr. Chu. It's on page A17. It deals with a seamless transit network for the Bay Area. We're recommending watch on this one as well because we're waiting for the MTC Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations so that Mr. Chu could integrate his effort with the Blue Ribbon Commission. That bill is in appropriations. A bill that was introduced last year, but because of COVID didn't move forward, is AB 604 on page A17. This is by Mr. Daly. It would rededicate on an ongoing basis, continuous appropriation basis, the interest earnings from SB1 that the state collects into SB1 program, particularly the shop and maintenance at the state. There have been several proposals by legislators to otherwise expend the interest. We made a great case. Transportation interest made a great case that interest earned on a protected source like the gas tax is due to be returned to the function that's funded by the gas tax. So that measure is one we would like to recommend support. In the last 2 bills, Mr. Daly, and this would extend the sunset date on Caltrans' ability to use design build.
Excuse me, Mark. I think we missed.
The measure also allows regional entities to use design build under certain circumstances. Yes.
Sorry, Mark. You do cut out a little bit, and on the bill you're talking about right now, I don't think we heard what bill number that was.
My apologies, and I will just let you know that things will be better on Zoom starting next month because I go to my Ethernet connections. So I look forward to being able to talk more clearly in the future. The bill number is AB 1499, and it extends the design build authority that Caltrans currently has indefinitely, and we'd like to recommend a support position on that measure. And finally, Senate Bill 671 by the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee would call for a clean freight corridor assessment process to kind of help the state prioritize which corridors. We think that should be supported so we could have a seat at the table to ensure that Northern California and Contra Costa freeways are seriously considered as part of that assessment process. So with that, I bring this to a close, and I do apologize for the fractured Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. So just to
being
summarize.
able to be more clear in the months coming.
Okay, thank you. So you're recommending a support in AB 604, AB 1499, and SB 671, and a watch on AB 339, 455, 476, and 629. Is that correct?
This is Lindsay. I would actually propose that we change the watch on AB 455, the Monta bill, to a support.
That's the
Our
Bay
partners
Bridge.
at AC Transit asked us to support it, and now that Assemblymember Wicks will be carrying that forward.
Okay. Okay, to the committee, questions of Mark or Lindsay or discussion on the proposal to support AB 455, the Bay Bridge transit lanes, support AB 604, rededicate SB1 interest earnings back into the SB1 account, AB 1499, the design build authority, and SB 671 Clean Freight Corridor support. Questions, comments?
No, I'm looking at others, but I'm prepared to make the motion.
That would be great.
Yeah, based on staff recommendation. Geringer.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved by Geringer, second by Nowak. Any further discussion? All right, is there any public comment on this item, since this is an action item? Is there anybody in the public here? Please raise your hand if you'd like to comment. We need to see your video if you're going to do that. Christina, do you see any? I do not.
No, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. Member Butt,
Yes.
Member Geringer,
Aye.
Member Thorpe,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nowak,
Yes.
and Chair Arnrich.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Lindsay, Mark, Jason, and Cuss, all of you, thank you for everything you're doing for us. We look forward to more good news. And boy, when there's $40 billion of local money on the table, that's a pretty interesting story. And as we all know, in order to get federal money, you got to have that local state money. So this may be an opportunity to leverage some big dollars as we're in a great position. So thank you. Okay, and now we'll move to item 4B. And this is something we've been waiting on. And just to be transparent, both Vice Chair and myself had meetings almost 2 weeks ago with staff to sort of talk about this in general and get it sort of teed up in the right kind of a package for our consideration and recommendation today. And this is a proposal to look at authorizing issuance of about $135 million of CCA sales tax revenue bonds. And we have a presentation that we're going to see that we have not seen the final of this, but our financial advisory team is here, headed up by Melissa. And we're going to kick this off with an introduction by our CFO, Brian Keller. Brian, welcome.
Good morning, Chair Arnrich and Commissioner members. I accidentally closed my PowerPoint here, so bear with me and I apologize for this. So I'm here with Melissa Schick from K&N, and we're here to give you a presentation on the bonds. And what's really, really nice is this is a good news story, and we will be going over the staff report. And to get to this point, we have to work with a number of underwriters. We have to work with our bond team. We have the bond disclosure, the bond counsel, the swap advisor, which plays a very, very important role. And we've been working on this for at least, maybe 2 years ago we started with this, because with the swap, and as we went through the staff report and what we've been talking about over the years, and there's a few new members as well, we knew that this day was going to come. We have to have the bonds refinance the swap rate in September of 2021, which is now. The economy right now for us with the swap bonds is very unique and a very favorable opportunity. So in the staff report, I hope all of this was outlined. I hope you had a chance to read it. You may have several questions. We can go over this in the end. Melissa Schick is our financial advisor, as I mentioned. We also have David and Grant from K&N with us. And so we want to educate you on this process. Again, this is all about eliminating future risk. So with the bonds, as the LIBOR rate is disappearing, there's a couple different options on the table for some agencies to do and some private business as well as we move forward. And we would like to take the time and go over this with you, make sure that you're fully on board. Our recommendation is going to be to eliminate the swap. There is a small cost in there, but there's a future cost of about $2 million because you need to remarket this. Every time you remarket on a swap, it's about every 3 years. And as you extend it to 4 or 5 or 7 years, the cost and the interest rate goes up. And so with the interest rate so low right now, it's an opportunity for us to pay off the swap and move forward, creating a financing, fixing out all of our debt. And as you can see here, this is all of our debt. So we have the 2012 bonds that was issued back then. There's a remaining par amount of $12,450. And as you saw in the staff report, there's a chance to refinance that and capitalize on a couple $1 million of savings there. We have the 2015, 17, and 18 bonds on the fixed side. In the future, they're callable at about 10 years. And so what we can do is we can restructure our debt in the future. So the way we've got it all positioned, if we restructure this one now, the 2018 swap, we'll be able to take advantage of some of the markets if there is an advantage in the future and have some additional savings. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Melissa Schick to go over the next several slides. At the bottom of this page is the swap, and we also have this in the staff report. It talks about paying a fixed rate, receiving funds based off the LIBOR rate. But hopefully we won't have to look at this again after this month.
Melissa, welcome.
So go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you, and pleasure to be here today. And I think just one other thing I would point out on the previous slide is all of the authority's outstanding debt is primarily fixed rate debt. And what we're looking at today is this single series that's in variable rate mode, and it's connected with this interest rate swap. And so collectively, a variable rate series of debt and the interest rate swap has a lot of different pieces to it that just introduce risk to the authority, which the authority has managed well over time. But we do feel that now is the time to officially exit that arrangement. So moving on to the next slide is just the financing objectives for the 2021 bonds. It's not the issuance of debt for new proceeds to the authority, but it's managing its debt portfolio and getting you to a debt portfolio that is free of risk. So first and foremost, it's to refinance the outstanding variable rate 2018 A bonds, and that needs to be done before September of this year. There's two ways we could refinance those. One is in another variable rate mode and keep the swap outstanding, but our recommendation that we're putting forth today is to convert the variable rate bonds to fixed rate bonds. So in tandem with that, the second objective of the offering is to terminate the interest rate swap. Currently, there's $100 million of swap exposure outstanding. And so in doing so, we'll show you in the following slide that there would be a cost to terminate the swap, and we would finance that cost with tax-exempt fixed-rate bonds. And then finally, we're proposing to refund the authority's 2012B bonds that are currently in fixed-rate mode, but given the very low interest rate environment, the refunding of such bonds would achieve debt service savings to the authority. Just one thing to note, the refunding would be an advance refunding. So we're calling the bonds approximately a year ahead of its call date. And so we would be using taxable bonds to execute the refunding. just given tax reform and IRS limitations. Next slide. So this is just the big picture of what this 2 series of bonds would look like. One series would be tax exempt, completely fixed rate. And just in that first column of the 2021A bonds, to highlight, one, not only are we redeeming the 2018A bonds, but we would be also funding a swap termination cost, which is currently just under $26 million to the counterparty. We're doing this in an incredibly low interest rate environment. And you'll see under the column for the 21A bonds, the estimated true interest cost of the borrowing is just under 1.3%. The refunding, the next column, 2021B, is the refunding of the 2012B bonds. And you'll see in the estimated results section on this page is that refunding is anticipated to yield 1.8 million in present value savings and approximately 3 million of debt service savings over the remaining life of the bonds. So taken together, you know, we have an estimated debt service associated with this approach. We'll get to this, but in comparison to the alternative of issuing variable rate bonds and keeping the swap outstanding, our total estimated debt service is slightly higher than the alternative, but really it comes with no risk. And that slight increase in total aggregate debt service is approximately $320,000. And again, just to capture all of those estimates are based on the current market, and we're going to do everything we can to keep the current market steady between now and pricing. But really the rationale for our recommendation with staff is that the approach is consistent with the board's direction and the strategy we pursued in 2018 with the issuance of those bonds. And we eliminated 100 million of variable rate and swap exposure at that time. And then this just picks up where we left off and now makes what was not economic in 2018 more economic today, to then eliminate all of your variable rate risk, all of your swap risk, have 100% fixed rate debt portfolio at really limited additional cost to the authority. Furthermore, the market dynamics are such that it's an opportune time to capitalize on your objectives. Long-term fixed rates are historically low, and the swap termination fee has declined. And we'll see that we just charted that in the next slide. You know, we've been speaking to this group and the collective board in anticipation of this transaction. When we first started the discussion, the swap termination fee was approximately 35 million. And now that termination fee is estimated at 25 million. So it's come down quite a bit. Furthermore, the tax exempt interest rates marked by the green line remain low. The 10-year tax exempt indice is currently below 1%. Next slide. So we think it's important just to give you, the alternative approach of issuing new index rate bonds, floating rate bonds, and keeping the swap outstanding. We very closely evaluated this. We looked into the cost of multiple structures relative to the recommended approach. And while the cost is generally in line with the cost of the recommended approach, it does carry important considerations to the authority, which include future uncertainties, as well as future risk, as well as future costs. So variable rate debt has to be maintained. It's to be, typically structures are reset like you would refinance your mortgage every 3 to 5 years. And in doing so, that carries refinancing costs, which we estimated to be in and around $2 million between now and the term of those bonds. There's continued uncertainty around LIBOR, and that's what your swap, the indice your swap is based on. It's anticipated that LIBOR indice will transition to SOFR, but in hours of conversations with the swap counterparty, there's at this point, no clear answer of when that will happen and how it will happen. And then just considerations of a variable pay receipt on the swap and how that matches to the variable payment on the bond. So it's a lot of moving parts. It's not to say that this approach couldn't be done, but we are recommending an approach which we think is more in line with the objectives of staff and the board. And the next slide is just to emphasize the variable rate market, and it has volatility, and it's anticipated that your swap will at some point in the future transition to the SOFR indice, which is marked by the blue line. And you could issue floating rate notes based on the SOFR indice or the SIFMA indice, which is marked by the green line. But LIBOR is going away, and LIBOR is an indice that has been relatively stable for the authority, both as it relates to its floating rate debt and its swap. But there's uncertainty about how to match the swap to bonds, and it's hard to ignore historical volatility in that market. So as we look forward to the execution of the recommended approach, we are mindful that the cost of doing so, as we estimate today, may not be the same at pricing. We expect to price, June 1st or 2nd, so we have another month or so before we lock in rates. So we feel strongly about the recommended approach for the authority, and we've applied a series of interest rate sensitivities associated with the recommended approach. And to the extent the market moves away from us slightly, whether it's with regard to tax-exempt interest rates or the cost of terminating the swap, we, along with staff, are putting forth approval to move forward with the recommended approach such that we have some wiggle room to adapt to market conditions, but not to execute the recommended approach if it becomes too costly relative to the alternative. And in this instance, and in just prior discussions, we're pegging kind of a not to exceed of $3 million. The bond documents that are shared with you through the staff report provide the flexibility to pursue the alternative approach to the extent the recommended approach is cost prohibitive. And then with that, Brian, if you want to take it from here.
Yes, thank you very much, Melissa. Hopefully all of you found that beneficial. So what this slide shows here is our debt service. Our debt service is going to remain about $42 million. This is projected there. And as we've all discussed in the past, the projects division, the capital division, is probably about 90% done with all the capital projects based on the strategic plan. And so our debt, our revenues right now is projected to be this year at the end of the year about $97 million, and then it's going to continue to increase hopefully. But this is just a solid increase of about 3.5% to 4% increase, and you can see it exceeding. And what we like to call it is the white space. So if you look down, there's kind of the dotted green line. That's the 42.5% that's set aside for the capital program. And so we're right on the edge there with this refinancing. And in looking forward, as we go into the future years towards 2034, you can see there's going to be some excess funds that potentially could be used for additional capital projects. But as we've all experienced in the last 20, 30 years, there's always going to be a dip in revenue. Historically, we've done very well. It's as we just went through the pandemic, we're going to have an increase this year. So Contra Costa has remained very positive, but this is just a general overview of what the debt service looks like to the sales tax projections moving forward. So with that, this is the timeline. So our next meeting is the board meeting. We'll be doing the same presentation with any recommended changes or thoughts that the APC committee may have. As soon as we're done, we'll be meeting with S&P and Fitch in the next, I think it's on May 18th, 19th, and we'll get our ratings. And then what we'll do is we'll price the bonds, and hopefully the bonds will close the week of June 21st. So we need the market to remain relatively about the same. There is the great opportunity that we could get something a little better, and there is the opportunity that we might have to pay just a little bit. But again, we will march forward knowing that we'll make the best decision. And if needed, we'll come back to the board to make a decision if the market changes dramatically. So with that, I'll turn it over to any of you that have any additional questions. I can close the screen if that helps, or go to another slide if anybody needs for us to pull up a slide.
Brian, let's close the screen first, and then if somebody needs to see that, we'll go back. We'll start with any questions, comments from board members. Sue?
I don't really have a question because I asked a lot of my questions when we had, Newell and I had the opportunity to meet earlier with Melissa and Brian on this. So, but I just wanted to comment that this was extremely well thought through, and it's a really great opportunity in the marketplace to get out of this variable rate debt and also out of our swap agreement. And I don't think we'll see these opportunities at this low interest rate anytime in the near future. So I think this is a great opportunity for CCTA to do this refinancing.
Great, thank you. Teresa?
Also, no questions, but I did want to thank Vice Chair Nowak and Chair Arnerich for working with Brian and Melissa, because I know you both have lots of experience in this. I know Newell's been working on the swap opportunity or issue for a long time, and that Vice Chair Nowak comes with a very extensive background in municipal finance. So I think that this is a great opportunity and agree that sort of the stars are aligning with all your good work for us to bring this forward. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? I'll go to public comment. Is there anybody would like to comment from the public? Just please turn your video on and raise your hand. And Christina, can you help me sort of scan, see if there's any questions?
Yes, I don't see any hands raised.
Was there any written correspondence or questions on this?
No.
Okay, great. Well, Melissa, Brian, thank you so much for doing this. That was a very good condensed presentation. And I just add my 2 cents that timing is everything. And as Sue said and Teresa did, perfect timing. It's an opportunity. We have to look at the fiscal health of our organization, that we do have a sunset. And this is perfect timing. The LIBOR risk factor just makes it even worse. We don't know how that's going to be. Getting out, taking the opportunity to save, our future is fixed after this. So is there somebody who'd like to make a motion, Sue?
I'll make the motion.
Second, Geringer.
Okay, been moved by Noack, seconded by Geringer. Any further comments, discussion? Seeing none. Christina, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Member Butt,
Yes.
Member Geringer,
Yes.
Member Thorpe,
Lamar, are you?
Member Thorpe,
Aye.
thank you. Vice Chair Novak
Yes.
and Chair Arnrich.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Great. So we, Brian and Melissa, we look forward to seeing you at our full board meeting and get this really moving forward. So thank you so much. Okay, this takes us to item 4C, another great program that staff has been working on for some time, which is to review our quality assurance program. And we are delighted to see this come forward. And Jack, are you going to be the presenting on this one?
No, it's Stephanie.
Oh, Stephanie, I'm sorry.
Hi, Chair. That's okay.
I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry.
No
Stephanie,
worries. Yeah.
welcome, please. This is very exciting.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And confirming that you see the slide.
Yes.
Great. Well, good morning, Chair, Owners, and Commissioners. And Stephanie here, Director of Projects at CCTA. This is an informational item to give you a very quick overview of the new quality assurance program that staff has been developing over the last year. And this is going to be a quick presentation for you here. The Quality Assurance Program, or the QAP, was developed to ensure that the authority's expected level of quality is achieved for our projects. Though we recognize that it takes the effort of the entire project team to deliver quality products, the primary responsibility rests on the consultant team contracted to perform the work. The new QAP will require consultants to develop a project level quality management plan, or QMP, for their scope of work. The QAP outlines the requirements and defines the elements needed in the project QMP. A project QMP outlines the consultant team's quality assurance and quality control procedures, defines roles and responsibilities, and their internal quality assurance audit process. The goal of the project QMP is to prevent deficiencies through a methodical approach to ensure and verify that each project activity has been satisfactorily performed, with supporting documents to show that the quality has been achieved. Because the authority implements a wide range of projects and programs, the requirement for project QMPs will vary depending on the cost and complexity of the project. We have established 3 tiers for project size and complexity: large projects for those that have cost over $100 million, and small projects are those that are less than $20 million, and then a medium range for projects that kind of land in the middle. The tiers are used as a guidance, since project QMPs are meant to be tailored specific to each project. The project QMP approval level varies depending on the project size and complexity. Large or more complex project will obviously require more quality control measures and will require their QMPs to be approved before work can begin. This flowchart shows sort of the general steps of the quality assurance program. This is taken from the QAP overview document that was sent as a handout to you all. The quality assurance program process begins with staff assessing the cost and complexity of the project to determine the level of QMP requirements. From there, consultants selected to perform the work will develop their project QMP as part of the contract negotiation process. After the contract is executed and the contract or the project QMP is approved, the consultant performs their scope of work following their project QMP to ensure their deliverables are produced in a timely, cost-effective, and quality manner. The quality assurance program outlines the quality assurance audit process as well. The authority will perform audits to make sure that the consultant team is complying and carrying out the quality control measures and procedures outlined in their project QMP. Each audit will include a report summarizing the audit results and any correction actions if needed. The e-builder system that we have in place will help to facilitate the compliance monitoring. The end goal of the quality assurance program and the project QMP is to really get a very deliver a quality product. The design contract that is set for the next phases of 684 that we'll be hearing later in the agenda will be the first to implement the QAP. The project QMP has been developed by the design consultant. And then with this overall quality assurance program in place, we hope to catch any errors in the pre-construction phases to minimize risk and issues during construction. And with that, it concludes my very short presentation of an overview. And our PMO team, a consultant team that will be helping us implement the QAP is also in attendance to answer any questions. And also just a shout out to Tim, who really spearheaded this process for us last year. Oh, and my slideshow so we can see each other.
Great, Stephanie, thank you for that. Questions, comments for Stephanie? I would just add a couple of comments. First of all, this is great. It is a wonderful program. And this is a detail, so it's a little into the weeds. We need to have in our quality assurance that we pay a ton of money, I mean, huge contracts, to having full-time consultant staff on all of our construction sites to observe, do everything. We have to have a requirement that they walk the job site every day. And for example, the evidence of that they didn't on some, on 4680, we had steel that was installed that from 100 yards away, you can tell whether it's the correct steel or not, because it's color coded. So much steel was put in to the point that it was pretty much impossible to undo it, to switch back to the right stuff. It meant that those on-site people actually didn't walk the site. So if there's some way, it doesn't have to be, this is a high level view, just somewhere in the requirements that we do actually spell it out, that they need to actually walk the site, beginning of the day, the end of the day, rotating and take photographs and do all those things. Are they supposed to? Yeah, we all have trouble in construction, but anyway, just a small in the weeds suggestion. But, okay, so this is just information recommended only. It will go back to the full board. Any other comments that we want to add to this? Okay, seeing none, then Stephanie and Tim, everybody that worked on this, thank you, thank you. And Ivan, I know you're always working on stuff like this too, so we appreciate it and nice to see you. Okay, this will take us to item 4D, and this is Innovate 680 Automated Driving System, the ADS project. This is a really exciting opportunity to do a partnership. And Jack Hall is going to lead us off on this. Or Tim, were you going to do any intro, or is Jack going to handle this?
It's all Jack.
Jack, we're looking forward to this. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Chair Arnerich and committee members. My name is Jack Hall, and I'm the ITS Connected Autonomous Vehicle Program Manager for CCTA. This morning, we are asking for a recommendation of approval for 2 agreements related to our Innovate 680 Automated Driving System project, and we'll take them one at a time. First is the agreement number 562 with Cellco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless, to provide data gathering, data storage, data management, and wireless infrastructure. Data sharing is a key goal of the ADS project, not only because public acceptance requires confidence in the technology and its safety, but also because data sharing enables all partners to work collaboratively with each other towards achieving the goals of the project. Verizon will provide the following emerging products and services: cellular vehicle to everything, Verizon's wireless network and multi-edge compute to support broadcast messages to vehicles, pedestrians, and bicycles, utilizing sophisticated computer vision on smart cameras and information from the traffic cabinet. Verizon Connect, deploy Verizon's cloud-based fleet management products and telematics to test vehicle location, speed diagnostics, and driver safety metrics. And last, Data Insight Platform. Verizon will provide its Data Insights platform to offer a cloud-based central data depository as a managed service to serve as the data management platform for the project. The estimated cost of Verizon's scope of services is $1,921,163, which Verizon will contribute $805,163 of in-kind services. Under agreement number 562, Verizon will be compensated in the amount of $1,116,000 from the ADS project funding sources, which are the federal grant funds and state local partnership funds. There are no Measure J funds on this project. With that, staff seeks an approval recommendation to the full board authorizing the chair to execute agreement number 562 with Verizon in an amount not to exceed $1,116,000 to provide data gathering, data storage, data management, and wireless infrastructure services, and to allow the executive director or designee to make any non-substantial changes to the language. And that concludes my report for this first agreement.
Jack, you're always succinct. We appreciate that. Are there any questions from our committee members on the agreement or in Jack's presentation or the project as a whole? Any comments, questions? Are there any questions or comments from the public? If so, please raise your hand, turn your video on, and please physically raise your hand. Christina, do you see any? I do not.
I don't see any hands raised.
So is there a motion, recommendation to move this to the full board?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Moved by Lamar Thorpe.
Second.
Second by Nowak. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none. Christina, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Member Butt,
Yes.
Member Geringer,
Yes.
Member Thorpe,
Aye.
Member Nowak,
Yes.
and Chair Arnrich.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Great, Jack. And now we'll move to agreement number 567 with the University of California Transportation Sustainable Research Center.
Okay, thank you very much. The second agreement is with the University of California, Berkeley Transportation Sustainable Research Center, or TSRC, to provide preparation and implementation services. TSRC will provide assistance with the following scope of work: developing the project evaluation plan, development of survey, focus group, interview research protocols, and institutional review board, conduct evaluations and report results, and provide results to be included in the evaluation report to the United States Secretary of Transportation. This is a very short, that was my presentation. So with that, staff seeks an approval recommendation to the full board authorizing the chair to execute agreement number 567 with TSRC in the amount of $75,000 to provide preparation and implementation services related to the project evaluation plan and to allow the executive director or designee to make any non-substantial changes to the language. And that concludes my report.
That was really short. You had a pause there. I thought, wow, Jack's going to go on. So, okay, any questions or comments from our committee members of Jack? Seeing none, is there any comments or questions from the public? If so, just please physically raise your hand. And Christina, I do not see any. Do you see anybody else?
I do not see any either.
Okay. Is there a motion? Sue, or?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Nowak, seconded by Thorpe. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Christina, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Member Butt,
Yes.
thank you. Member Geringer,
Yes.
Member Thorpe,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nowak,
Yes.
and Chair Arnrich.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you, Jack, for both those items, and we look forward to seeing those the full authority meeting. Okay, this takes us to item 4E, our last regular agenda item, and this is authorization to execute amendment number 2 to agreement 503 and task order 1 with the WMH Corporation for environmental and final design services. And our Ivan Ramirez is here. Good to see you, Ivan. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and board members. My name is Ivan Ramirez, and during my normal duties, I'm the Director of Construction, but As you will see in my presentation, a small agency that we are, we also have to do other tasks. And I've been tasked with overseeing the design of this very important project, which is the I-680 State Road 4 Interchange Improvement Phases 1 and 2A. As you are aware, currently we have under construction Phase 3, and now we are finding a position where we can move forward with the design services for Phases 1 and 2A. A little bit of history. Back in September of 2018, the authority approved several contracts on from an on-call list. Out of those firms that were selected was William Hadaya. They were provided with a contract not to exceed $5 million, and they were assigned the environmental services and engineering services for phases 1 and 2A of the project. Unfortunately, funding for this project is programmed to come out of Regional Measure 3. As maybe some of you are aware, that money is hung up on litigation, so we couldn't move forward with the project. As a consequence, the contract was extended for the William Hadaya Corporation in September of 2020 with an expiration date of 2022. Since then, the authority has gone to work, and we applied and received $18 million from the Trade Corridor and Enhancement Program to partially fund the project. Those sorts of funds require a matching fund of about 30%. Again, we were expecting Regional Measure 3 to provide us $8 million. The money is not available, so this board earlier this year approved a letter of no prejudice, whereby we're going to put Measure J money to fund us $8 million, which is the 1/3 percentage for this contract. And then once Regional Measure 3 gets released, we'll get paid back by MTC. So before I proceed with the presentation, I do have a small deck of slides that I want to share with you regarding the project, so you get an idea of what is it that we're talking about here, how these phases are divided. And it's very brief. Are you able to see my screen? You are? Okay, yes. Let me put a full view. Give me just a second here. Does that look better?
There you go. Perfect.
All right. So this is the overall project. The project is very large. Because of funding and we don't have all the money available, it has been broken into several phases. And when I enhance it a little bit here, and start with phase 3, which is the one currently in construction. Oh, sorry about that. Trying to get my laser where I can get to it. Here we go. Okay, so this yellow band here, that is the current construction contract that is scheduled to be substantially completed by July or August of this year. The segment that we're talking about is actually phase 1 and phase 2A, which is this blue line here, like that, little bit of work here off to the side, and then continuing on all the way over here. We're also going to do, as part of this contract with William Hadaya, we're going to do some work here, which is part of phase 2A, and I will talk a little bit about those segments in a little bit. In the future, we hope to have enough money to complete phase 2 here, which is this lighter pink color over here, all this work. And subsequent to that, we have more work with phases 4 all the way over here, and then 5 in the opposite direction. Just wanted to give you an overall update of where the project sits right now. Okay, so what are the project features for this contract with William Hadaya? We're going to be extending an express lane or installing an express lane here. This is going to be a 2-lane connector coming across, and there's going to be an ability to get off into Pacheco Boulevard. That's a big improvement, because the way it currently is set up over here, these ramps and this off ramp create a lot of very short merges for traffic, so therefore backs up traffic significantly, both into 680 and Highway 4. And then we're going to continue here with a auxiliary lane. So in essence, you're going to have an auxiliary lane here coming all the way across, all the way over here. And as part of that, we're also going to put some metering lights to help control traffic both here and here. And the other part of the project, which is part of 2A, I mean, it's part of 2, but we call it 2A, is we're going to put this distributor ramp here. We're going to extend it by about 1,500 feet. So where are the costs? The environmental is complete. The design and which includes environmental revalidation. The environmental document has been approved, but we have to revalidate it to make sure that it still applies with current and new laws. And that's about $26 million. Then we have right-of-way and utilities. That's another $14 million. And just when you think that we have a big construction project going on right now, this actually has a value of $196 million. The remainder of the project is supposed to be funded by Regional Measure 3, but there's about $8 million going to be funded by the local program partnership, SLPP. And this is a very, very high view schedule where as soon as you give approval, we're going to start our environmental revalidation. We're going to complete the supplemental project report. We're also going to begin the final design. Right-of-way utilities are going to be right behind. We hope to be in construction by early 2025 under this current schedule. So with that, commissioners, we have reached out to William Hadaya Corporation. They provided us with scope of services, fees, and new quality assurance plan. And we have reviewed it, and we feel very comfortable seeking approval from the board. And with that, staff seeks approval to issue for the chair to execute amendment number 2 to agreement 503 and task order number 1 with William Hadaya Corporation in the amount of $11,378,167 for a new total agreement value of $16,378,167,000 to provide environmental revalidation, final design, and bid support services, and to allow the executive director or designee to make any non-substantive changes to the language. This amendment will extend the agreement termination date to December 31st, 2024. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, Ivan. Thank you so much. A very good report, very concise as well. Questions from committee members to Ivan or staff? Seeing none, is there any questions or comments from the public on this item? If so, would you please turn your video on and please physically raise your hand so we can identify you. Christina, do you see any?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, great. Any discussion or a motion on this item for recommending to move it to the full board?
I move approval, Butt. Second.
It's been moved by Butt, seconded by Thorpe. Any further comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none, Christina, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Member Butt?
Yes.
Member Geringer?
Yes.
Member Thorpe?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nowak?
Yes.
And Chair Arnrich?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Great. Ivan, thanks again. We look forward to seeing you at our regular board.
Chair, may I answer the comment you made earlier, because I think it's a very important one regarding the lack of inspection in construction specific to the current phase. And you're absolutely correct, Commissioner. We paid a lot of money. We have people out there, actually, Commissioner, they are out there full time. And we have a program whereby they take pictures and videos of all the activities they inspect. So and many of us have access to those records. And I can tell you that they were out there, they were actually taking pictures. It's just, unfortunately, they really weren't doing their job. So even though they were out there physically present, it escapes me how is it that something like this can happen. But I just wanted to assure you that we're doing everything that we can at this point to make sure that something like that does not happen again. It is very, very hard to control because you have to control the nth person in the field. But we're doing everything that we can to hold them accountable to this type of situations. But your point is well taken, and we're on it.
Great. And I trust when you say you're on it, we all know you really are. So Ivan, thank you for that. And I appreciate that comment. Great. That takes us to item number 5, which is correspondence and communications, which we see in our packet. Item number 6 is 6A, chair's comments, reports. I have none. B, is there any comments from our commissioners, committee members? Seeing none. Executive comments. Tim, any comments from you?
No comments, Chair. Thank you.
Great. Well, with that, is there any other business? Seeing none, we're just a little over an hour. We accomplished a lot today. So thank you to the committee. Thank you to the staff to bring everything. These are some big items we're moving forward on, and we look forward to seeing everybody at our regular full meeting, and we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
See everybody later at Mayor's Conference.